And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska aviation weather outlook on this Sunday, August 18th, 2024. Fair number of things to talk about, and as of this Sunday morning around 10:30 a.m. local time, Alaska time, we have from the Aviation Weather Unit, we have volcanic ash cloud segments for Sheveletch volcano, which is out here in the Kamchatka Peninsula, and we've had ahead of this, we have a low pressure system that's coming on shore across the lower Yukon Delta here this late Sunday morning. Ahead of it, this front, and we have a plume of ash surface to 28,000 feet, though the bulk of this is high up. That is heading northeastward. That's the situation as of 10:30 this Sunday morning. Backside, we have some lower ash surface to 20,000 feet coming in through the western Aleutians, and the advisory going out 6 hours ahead into 4 p.m. This Sunday afternoon has that ash plume spreading northeastward along and ahead of the front, right up across Cook Inlet, up the Susitna Valley, and eventually for the Sunday evening and overnight, it's going to continue northeastward across the eastern mainland as this front will advance eastward. So at this point, we've had some reports, pilots indicating some kind of a hazy brown ash out there in the mid portion of the Alaska Peninsula. And then we have that other secondary batch of a little lower ash coming in across the western into the central Aleutian. So that's the way things stand. Again, mainly a higher level phenomena, but something to keep an eye out for. And for the weather in general, a lot is going on. We have coastal flood warnings for areas around Kuskokwim Bay. We have flood watches along areas of the southwest slopes here of the Brooks Range around Ambler because of heavier rainfall coming in. Currently have a low that as of late this Sunday morning coming in across the lower Yukon Delta, taking a track northeastward. There's going to be yet another storm for Tuesday, Wednesday into Thursday, come up a little further west here out across the western Bering and up toward the Bering Strait. So that will have more impact on the lower Yukon Delta on up into Norton Sound and the Seward Peninsula versus like the area right now that's had the coastal flooding in areas of Kuskokwim Bay. So there's another front. The initial lead front continues eastward with IFR conditions and rain showers back to the west, though we expect Monday morning that IFR conditions will exist along that front as it progresses eastward toward the Panhandle. Areas of IFR, Talkeetna Mountains along portions of the Alaska Range, as well as into areas of the southwest and western interior, and especially the south slopes of the Brooks Range. For Monday afternoon, we find that front pushing into the Panhandle with areas of rain, lower ceilings, and some IFR, especially along the inner coastal mountains and then along the outer coast there of the eastern and southeastern Gulf. Across much of the mainland, we do have a broad area of MVFR conditions, and I'm sure there'll be some pockets of IFR linger Monday afternoon within areas of the Alaska Range and potentially along the south slopes of the Brooks Range. Further south and west, we're going to have a return flow, moist return flow. And the system that's coming in midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, is the remnants of a tropical system. Not as bad as Merbach a couple years ago, but nevertheless, it has precipitation and wind with it. That's going to be coming northeastward. And for Tuesday morning, we find IFR conditions, intercoastal mountains and channels here of the Panhandle into the south areas, including Craig and Ketchikan. Pockets of IFR expected along parts of the Alaska Range, Wrangell, St. Elias Mountains up here and near and just east of Fairbanks, and then along the Brooks Range, along the west side of the Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, and then out here with this front that's going to be pushing northeastward with that milder, moist air. IFR conditions there through the central eastern Aleutians. And for Tuesday afternoon, we find drying here in south central and a better portion of the mainland and northern Panhandle. Should see VFR conditions for Tuesday afternoon. In fact, the pick of weather days of this week for the south central will be Monday afternoon into Tuesday. Definitely better weather, but that next low is going to be taking a track right like this up toward the Bering Strait, front ahead of it. IFR conditions, wind and rain, and that will again enhance the potential for high surf and obviously turbulence and lower ceilings and visibility in areas of at least moderate rain. So coming up for Monday, Anahtuvik Pass generally should be stuck in IFR conditions. It'll just kind of linger up in the pass itself. Better either side of the north and south entrances. Conditions should be MVFR, even VFR, but within the pass itself, IFR, same thing, Atigan Pass could hold on to IFR conditions up in the immediate pass there on Monday. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR in the morning, then MVFR. Rainy Pass, same thing, IFR, then MVFR. Windy Pass, IFR as well to start Monday, becoming MVFR. Isabel Pass should be farther enough east that it's just MVFR, and then further east, Mentasta Pass should generally hold on to VFR conditions during the day Monday. Tanita Pass, IFR conditions in the morning there, giving way to MVFR conditions. And Portage Pass, starting out with MVFR conditions, giving way to VFR. And Chilkoot and White should see VFR conditions on Monday morning, giving way to MVFR conditions with that frontal system coming in from off of the Gulf. So here is a look at the freezing levels aloft, especially. We can see where the coldest air is, not just at the surface, but aloft. We have surface freezing line Monday morning over eastern Russia. We have freezing levels aloft there down to 2,000 feet, but rising. We still have freezing levels above 12,000 feet here over the Yukon and Northwest Territories, indicating ridging. There's a strong front pushing eastward, clearing the Alcan border here on Monday. And that front trails back, and then we have the next low out here in the North Pacific, that extratropical system that was once tropical, and that will be riding northeastward along the western portion of the Bering Sea and will likely cause these freezing levels to nudge back up or bulge northward like you have ahead of a front. But right now, we have the low that's going to be tracking northeastward in the wake of it, colder air coming in, indicating the trough aloft. And as a result, we're going to have colder temperatures aloft spreading here across the mainland. And with the areas of precipitation we find, there could be some moderate icing along the Brooks Range back toward the northwest Arctic coast above 4,000 feet. As we get into the heart of the interior, especially, say, middle portion of the Yukon Valley above 6,000 feet and above 8,000 feet over the southwest and the west side of the Alaska Range. And then as we get back out, with the return flow, warmer, moist air coming in aloft, you have cloud covers and some precipitation above 10 and 12,000 feet, respectively, here in the lower southwest part of the Bering Sea and far western Aleutians. So here is the upper level jet stream pattern, 30,000 feet on Monday. We find a trough over the mainland. That's the area of low pressure that's lifting northeastward at the surface. And then here's an intermediate ridge between the next system, and here comes the jet core associated with that next stronger low that's going to be heading up along the west side of the Bering Sea toward the Bering Strait with a wind max of 135, 130 knots. And then bringing it down to 9,000 feet, we have a broad belt of wind, northwesterly winds across the west side of the state, especially the southwest into the Gulf, 35 to 40, locally 45 knots here through some of the gaps. Back to the west, here's the circulation. Mid-levels of that next extra tropical low that's heading northeastward with a core of winds as high as 70, 75 knots from the southwest. And bringing it down to 3,000 feet, we find areas of some winds here, 40 knots near and west of Ambler on the just northwest side of the Alaska Range, maybe Lake Minchumina. Then here within the entrance of Cook Inlet, northwest winds to 40 knots. And then behind me, we find this core of stronger winds anywhere from 45 to as high as 65, 70 knots, especially in the easterly quadrant of the low as it tracks northeastward up toward the Bering Strait for midweek, later Tuesday into Wednesday and early Thursday. And of course, the greatest threat of turbulence in this kind of setup, we still will have pockets of moderate turbulence throughout the mainland, out toward the Wrangell-St. Elias Mountains and the Alcan border, as well as along and north side of the Alaska Range into the Yukon Valley, south slopes of the Brooks Range, central Brooks Range spine, and then down along areas of the southwest coast, including Kuskokwim, Bristol Bay, and this area around Cook Inlet back through the northern half of the Alaska Peninsula. And then again with the next system, even there's the potential for some isolated severe turbulence there in the western into the central Aleutians on Monday, surface to 3,000 feet.